So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Buddhist Path of Awakening course. Let's bow in. And tonight, we're going to play this by ear. We're doing chapter 7 of Francesca Fremantle's book, Luminous Emptiness, which is quite long. And Michael and I have agreed that I may just cut the class shorter after me, and then he would do the second half of this chapter next week, or we may try and do the whole thing tonight. We'll just play it by ear, okay? Great. So, this has to do with the 5 Buddhas, the 5 Buddha families, and the mandala. So I'm going to, right now, I've given you this before, but I'm going to do it again, I hope. Hold on a second, where is it? I want to give you this document that briefly describes the mandala. Where do I find this? Michael, how do I do this? I've got it up somewhere.
Can you open it now?
Maybe it's in chat. Yeah, I think it's in chat. Here we go. Okay. Has everyone received this? I don't think so. The mandala of 5 of the Buddha families. Having trouble with, sorry.
Where would we see it, John?
In chat.
Oh, in chat?
I'm going to have to I'll email it out to you. You've already gotten it in a previous class, most of you. I see Dan nodding yes and Carolyn yes, but I'll send it again at the end of this class. So, Trungpa Rinpoche taught this, as well as Francesca's teaching it, because it underlies the Bardo Tudo, the teachings of how achieving liberation in the Bardo, the death states. And it's really a description of the world seen through enlightened eyes. We normally see the world through our neurotic eyes, dominated by ego and its concerns. I want this, I'm afraid I don't have that, whatever it may be. All of these anxieties that color the way in which we see the world. And we miss the beauty and the vividness of the way in which the world expresses itself. This is what is being described in the 5 Buddha families that Michael and I are going to teach. It's this vivid, extremely beautiful world that only happens now, in the present moment. And this world, it includes absolutely everything. All phenomena, all possibilities of any kind of experience can be included in the 5 Buddha families. And it's a picture of a beautiful and luminous and meaningful world, the 5 Buddha families. There are different versions of this. We're going to go through the one that's given here, but there are different versions of these 5 families that you will encounter. But mainly, they are always arranged in a mandala. Remember, a mandala is a schematic for reality. It's a diagram. It has a center and 4 directions. In the classic mandala, you'll find these 4 directions in different arranged in different ways, but the one we're going to talk about tonight, the center is the Buddha family. All of these are called Buddha families, and the one name for the one in the center is Buddha. To its right is east, and this is the Vajra Buddha family. Adamantine, Vajra, indestructible, sharp, hard. To the south is the Ratna Buddha family. Ratna has to do with richness and wealth. We'll go through this a lot more. To the west is the Padma Buddha family, having to do with magnetizing, warmth, love. It's red. And to the north is the Karma Buddha family, which has to do, among other things, action. These are the 5 Buddha families. The one in the center, which is the Buddha family, there's a picture of a Buddha there. The Buddha that is depicted is usually, not always, Vairochana. To his right, to the east, is Akshobhya. He's the Vajra Buddha family. To the south, Ratna, it's Ratnasambhava. To the west, Padma family, it's Amitabha. And to the north, the Karma family is Amoghasiddhi. So, on a very beautiful, warm spring day, we are encountering a dominance of, for instance, Amitabha. He represents this beauty of the spring and the freshness and color that we can experience. If it's a summer day with its heat, with animals growing and living in the earth, thousands of bugs, grasses growing, trees, plants of all kinds, this is the Karma Buddha family. Karma means action. And this has to do with incredible action. We'll come back to all this. So you can see that these families characterize lots of things. Trungpa Rinpoche told us that each one of us manifests in the style of 1 or 2 and occasionally 3 Buddha families. So as an example, I was slightly unusual. It's not being better, it's just being a little bit different, in that he said that I represented in my nature 3 Buddha families. I represented Padma, seduction, magnetizing, which has to do with sex, love, beauty. I represented Vajra, which has to do with intellect, clear, crystal, cutting. And we'll come back to these. And let's see how it is. Padma, Vajra, and I'm Ratna. Ratna is wealth, greed, richness. It's the autumn when everything is being harvested. There's a 4th aspect, or another aspect, that is not mentioned in this chapter. I've only heard of this through Trungpa Rinpoche. And it goes like this, that each one of us, in addition to our fundamental natures, we can actually go around this room and say who's what. What do you think, Michael? I think you're very Vajra. Intellect, let's see. Carolyn, definitely Padma. Oh my goodness. Lots of Padma there. And these are our basic natures and the way they express themselves. There's another element that Trungpa Rinpoche called the exit. The exit is the Buddha family style in which you avoid being present. It's your neurotic style. See, the fundamental styles are your enlightened style. It's the way you really are. But then there's your exit. My exit was karma, speed. I would come into a room, I'd just be so speedy. It's a way of dealing with anxiety. In this case, speed. You get busy, do lots of things, speed along. Trungpa Rinpoche said there's nothing inherently wrong with speed. It's useful, but when it's neurotic, it's like the road runner. And he used to call me that. This is in the very early days, he used to call me the road runner, because a road runner has like blinders on, doesn't look right or left, just goes very fast straight ahead, comes to a screeching halt, changes direction, and takes off in that direction. This is the example I'm using myself. After a while, I think he felt that I had transcended my neurosis, my exit. But, it still comes back from time to time. When you get neurotic, when you're anxious, you tend to lapse into your exit. And my exit was karma, speed, action, activity. Other people's exit could have been padma, for instance, where a person, when they get neurotic and anxious, they start to seduce everything, want to fuck everything and make love to everything. And it can be that way. Or it could be ratna. I remember Michael Cohen, who was a close student of Trungpa Rinpoche. He was a very big guy, fat, ate a lot. And his exit was ratna. Wealth, greed, richness. So that's your exit and your fundamental nature. Our fundamental nature we can't get rid of, although, finally, one more thing. These families tend to morph over time, and they change one thing into the next. Padma, over long periods of time, many years, can morph into ratna, wealth. The warmth of Padma can move into the wealth of ratna. Karma, action, activity, can move into the sharp intellect of Vajra. But on the whole, we don't have to worry about those morphings. We just need to learn about the families now. Why? As neurotic, unenlightened individuals, we live in a world in which ego, is dominant. We are constantly seeing the world through the lens of our personal egotism, which is not the real world. It's the neurotic world. It's a world that lacks heart. It's a world that is cruel. It's a world of good and bad, of criticism, self-criticism and the criticism of others. This is the world of ego, which we have been studying. So we all should be familiar with this. When we're enjoined to enter the world of the Buddha families, Judy, I'm going to mute you. There you go. You did it yourself. When we're enjoined to enter the world of the Buddha families, these have nothing to do with ego. They're the way in which phenomena now, right now, presents itself. And they are enlightened. They are awake. It's a world of beauty and richness and magic and vividness. Vivid qualities. This is the world of the Buddha families. It's a world that only exists in the present moment, here and now. So we're being asked to step out of the world of neurosis, of ego, of neuroticism, of self-concern, of self-criticism, of criticism of others. We're being asked to leave that behind and wake up to this, right here and now, which is described in terms of the mandala, which is in turn divided into the center and 4 directions, which contains these 5 Buddha families dominated by the 5 Buddhas. And so we're going to begin to study these Buddha families so that we can begin to recognize them in our lives because they represent life. Trungpa Rinpoche, I feel, lived in this world. It was the world of meaning, warmth, love, everything. So I've sent you previously a description of the mandala, and I've got to say that in different contexts it's described variously, but we're going to go through the one that's used in the Bardo Turdal, the Book of the Dead, and it was also the one that Trungpa Rinpoche favored, with Vairochana at the center, Akshobhya as Vajra in the east, Ratnasambhava in the south, Amitabha, Padma in the west, and Amoga City representing karma in the north. Now, I'll say one more thing. As human beings living our lives, we are always facing the east. In fact, when you sit and you meditate, your eyes, if you open your eyes, you're looking east. East at Akshobhya, the Vajra family. You can turn and look south or west or north, but basically when we meditate, especially when we're doing tantric practices, we are facing east, wherever east it may be. It's not literal east, it's the figurative east of your mind. So I have in my notes, this is the 5-colored rainbow display of the awakened state. The imagery of light is very important. Rays, clouds, circles, and spheres, points of light. And what characterizes the Buddha's enlightenment is jnana. Now there are 2 words that we are familiar with, and I'm just going to re-mention them, that symbolize non-dual knowing. The first is prajna. Jnana is the root of the word to know. Pra is an intensifier. And when we exercise prajna, we are seeing the world, we're cutting through our judgments of good and bad. And we exercise prajna as like a capacity, a wisdom, a skill with which to see the world devoid of neurosis. But it's still something we possess, prajna. It's something that we discover and then cultivate, prajna. We discover this world of non-duality that's revealed by prajna. So prajna is still a path term, and it's very much connected with the Mahayana teachings, although you'll find it in the Tantric as well. The other aspect of this non-dual knowing is called jnana, like J-N with a circumflex A-N-A. This is not a capacity for cutting through, it is wisdom itself, and it's what we are. It's not something we own or have or exercise. And the Buddha families are represented by the 5 jnanas. Each one of them has its own jnana, its own wisdom, its own mode of expression. These are without dualism, without owner and owned, without self and knowledge. The 5 jnanas. I have in my notes, these are embodied manifestations of different aspects of enlightenment through which we can connect with our own intrinsic Buddha nature. This is the 5-colored rainbow display of the awakened state. So these are the 5 wisdoms, the 5 jnanas, and they're depicted symbolically as the 5 Buddhas. So I have in my notes that prajna is the understanding of the non-dual nature of everything, whereas jnana is the union of being and knowledge. It's the ultimate state. It's what a Buddha is without any effort. It's not some capacity or talent. These two aspects, though, are inseparable, prajna and jnana. Prajna is defined as the state of mind that knows emptiness and selflessness. It's symbolized, prajna, by a two-edged sword, which a Buddha holds. One edge cuts through primitive beliefs about reality, the primary one being the belief that anything exists. And the other edge cuts through the conflicting emotions that we experience when we do believe that things exist. If we believe that things exist, I want that chocolate bonbon. I hate that person who is insulting me. And this is prajna, seeing this, how this works. Jnana is the union of being and knowledge, the ultimate state. And ultimately, the two are inseparable. So that two-edged sword that you'll see a bodhisattva holding, that's the sword of prajna. Cuts through belief in self and other, the belief in things that exist, and then it also cuts through the conflicting emotions that we get involved with when we believe in self and other. So jnana is the supreme knowledge of truth, of how things really are. It's not possessed. It is characteristic of an enlightened being. It doesn't have an object, because the distinction between subject and object is a myth. It's just a creation of ego. Jnana is non-conceptual and non-dual. Non-conceptual because it results from direct, immediate experience. Non-dual because it is a complete oneness with that experience. So there is no longer any sense of knower and experiencer. It's this that we're sitting in the middle of. Jnana is innate. It has always been present within us from the very beginning. But it is obscured by ignorance and confusion, which go looking for answers, go looking for some improvement, when there is none. It's also in Tibetan, it's called yeshe. Ye, Y-E, she, S-H-E-S. She means knowing. Ye means primordial. This is jnana. Jnana is the Sanskrit, yeshe is the Tibetan. And they mean what the Tibetan says, primordial knowing, already there, always there, has been there from beyond, there is no beginning. So the five jnanas, there are five of them, shine forth as five colors. They are the five male and five female Buddhas, and they're the five skandhas and the five elements, elements being earth, water, fire, air, movement, and space. This system of five families creates the typical mandala pattern of a center and the four cardinal directions. The five afflictions or defilements, and you can make note of this in that chart that I gave you, are delusion, passion. Delusion, I think I say, delusion would be the Buddha family in the center of the mandala. It has to do with stupidity, ignoring. Passion is the Padma neurosis, the five affliction or defilement in the East. Aggression would be the karma, action Buddha family in the North. Pride is Ratnasambhava, Ratna in the South, and envy, Padma in the West. These are the five kinds of confusion and negativity. They're the five poisons, which really are just distortions of enlightened energy. Each is the antithesis of the five knowledges. And this knowledge is said to be the practice of Vajrayana transformation, of poison into elixir. So the whole meaning and purpose of these 5 families is to wake us up from our dream of neuroticism, our dream of self, I and other, our dream of unhappiness. Wake us up to our inherent Buddha nature. Not only do we already possess all the good qualities of the awakened heart and enlightened mind, but we can even transform our false and negative tendencies into aspects of enlightenment. According to Tantra, the only way we can teach and reach the knowledge of the Buddhas is through the energy of the 5 poisons transmuted into the 5 wisdoms. And the arena in which this transformation takes place is the mandala, the organization, center, north, east, south, and west, which is the dwelling of the Buddhas. It's their world and their environment within which everything is an expression of wakefulness and a call to awakening. I have my note, all the colors that are seen are the light rays of knowledge. All the sounds that are heard in the mandala are the natural proclamation of the Dharma, because they are the proclamation of reality. If we were to eat the fruit of the trees that grow there, they would have the taste of supreme bliss. The bodies of the deities, the walls of the palaces, the trees, rocks, water, and whatever else may be found there are not solid and substantial, but appear as though they were made of rainbow light. And this is the world that we're being asked to enter and live in, this world, made of rainbow light, in truth. We think of it as made of things, objects, possessing qualities. And what they're saying is, in fact, this world right now, this very instant that we're living in, is this rainbow light, this world of Buddha enlightenment. If only we have the eyes to see, and it's asking us to have those eyes, to come back from the neurosis of ego and egotism into this beautiful, luminous world. So each of us occupies the center of our own personal mandalas, of friends, family, colleagues, and indeed, everyone with whom we have ever come into contact. And at the same time, we are each of us part of innumerable other mandalas. So we have our own mandala as we sit here and we're looking east, always east, to the rising sun. This is always the direction we are looking. The sun is rising continually. And at the same time, we're part of innumerable other mandalas, the mandala of your lover, the mandala of your mother and father, the mandala of the United States, the mandala of the world. There are innumerable other mandalas of which we are a part, while we each have our own. He says, the mandala of the deities arises from a state of natural perfection and harmony. The mandala principle points the way towards transmuting the confused patterns of samsara into the harmonious patterns of enlightenment. From our unenlightened point of view, she says, there appears to be a process of change, the transformation of samsaric mandala of the skandhas, the poisons, and the gross elements. This is what we live in neurotically, into the mandala of the awakened state. Here, now, real. So it's not a forced transformation, but it's an uncovering of the hidden order that dwells at the heart of chaos and confusion. Chaos contains enormous energy. It's the raw material of creativity, but the very confusion itself obstructs the expression of the creative power. The secret of the mandala is to tap into that raw, chaotic energy and transform it through awareness, to reveal its inherent nature. And in order to do that, we have to come back. Come back to when we practice our meditation together every day, we are practicing, at least from moment to moment, coming back. Right, Steve? Yes. We are coming back, always. Coming back to this. This is where the mandala lives. This is where the Buddhas dwell. And we get lost in dreams, sleepy dreams of I and other, of insufficiency and hope and fear. We get lost in these dreams and we have to come back. And that's the practice that we do every time we sit down on the cushion. Yeah. In death, we will, after the body and the mind die, we will experience the bardo, the interval of reality, dharmata. And in this bardo, the 5 Buddhas each appear at the center of their own mandala, together with their 5 Devi consorts and their sons and daughters, the 8 Bodhisattvas. They also appear in the great mandala containing all the peaceful deities, followed by the mandalas of the wrathful deities, who are the most extreme expressions of their irresistible energy. And there's a division into, it's always fivefold division of reality that we experience. Body, the form aspect. Speech, which has to do with conveying meaning. Mind, which is meaning and knowledge. Quality, the way things come into practice, the black of this sweater, the pink of this cheek, so forth. And action. Everything is in constant action. This is the world of reality. So he says the basic fivefold mandala is fundamental to all tantric practices. In these practices, the meditator identifies with the central deity and emanates the surrounding deities in the cardinal directions, starting with the east. Symbolically, the meditator always sits facing the direction of the rising sun, which is east. So east is in front, south is to the right, west is behind, and north is to the left. Vairochana, the central Buddha, appears first. But we're going to come to him last in this chapter. We're going to start with the East, Vajra family, the Buddha Akshobhya. He combines the strength, power, and energy of the thunderbolt with the brilliance, purity, and indestructibility of the diamond. Akshobhya Vajra represents intellect that is absolutely cutting, pure, revealing. Its season is the winter because everything becomes frozen and crystalline and sharp. Akshobhya makes the same gesture as the Buddha did when he achieved enlightenment. Sitting under the Bodhi tree, he was tempted by Mara, the evil one, Death, who came to tempt him, who sent an army of terrifying demons. And then Mara sent his beautiful, seductive daughters to tempt the Buddha. But the Buddha was unmoved, touched the earth with his right hand, and called upon the goddess of earth to witness his resolution. Earth trembled and quaked in every direction as though to demonstrate awe at his great vow. Akshobhya, the Buddha of the East, makes this same gesture. Akshobhya is the embodiment of the mirror-like knowledge. It's absolutely crystal clear. It has no axe of its own to grind. It's just reflecting everything in the world. This mirror is mind itself, clear as the sky, empty yet luminous. This is the mind of Akshobhya, the Buddha of the East. It's the purified nature of the skandha of form. Every one of these is a skandha. It's a magic mirror in which nothing in it has any intrinsic reality or independent existence. It perceives everything with precision and clarity. It doesn't judge or compare. It does not feel attachment or aversion. So each of these families has an activity. And the activity of the Vajra family, the family of the East, is pacifying through understanding. The activity of the Buddha of the South, Ratnasambhava, represents wealth and richness, is enriching. He brings wealth and richness to our world. The activity of the Buddha of the West, Amitabha, is magnetizing, seducing through love, magnetizing in. And the Buddha of the action of the Buddha of the North, karma, is accomplishing action. It's also destruction. So these are the four actions: understanding, enriching, magnetizing, and destroying. And it's said that as each one of us achieves enlightenment, we achieve the first three first, because the one about destroying is the most difficult and dangerous. Finally, the Buddha in the center of the mandala, Buddha, has no action at all. Each one of us, represents different Buddhas, has different styles. There are people in this room who are very Padma, seductive, loving. There are people in this room who are very Vajra, clear. When I first came to Colorado with Trungpa Rinpoche, I lived together with him and another fellow named Marvin Casper. Anybody in this room knew Marvin Casper? No. Too bad, he died. Oh, you knew him, Michael. Marvin Casper, I think, was probably the most Buddha family I've ever met. Buddha is extremely spacious in its positive aspect. In its negative aspect, it's a slob. It doesn't do anything. Marvin, I lived with him in a house after we moved. Trungpa Rinpoche asked us to move out after about a year and a half because he was getting involved with another student and also his own wife and children. And we lived in a house together, Marvin and I. I had to go in and tell Marvin, all these clothes, they're filthy. Bring them downstairs. We have a washing machine. I had to tell him, Marvin, it's time to bathe. You haven't taken a shower in a long time. We can smell you. He was perfectly happy this way to do nothing. He was an extremely Buddha family. He taught me the meaning of Buddha family, Marvin did. And he was also extremely non-reactive and perspicacious. In a situation of conflict, he could see straight through to what was going on. It's a kind of wisdom that he had. He never got emotional. I remember one time Marvin and I were living with Trungpa Rinpoche, and he invited Tanya Leontov, also known as Kaisan, to come from Tail of the Tiger, now Karmichili, and visit. She came and she and I just battled each other. We had constant fights, constant arguments. And Marvin never was fazed. He was utterly cool and calm. And every once in a while, he might say something really cutting to the both of us. One time we were having this big argument in the upstairs living room, Kaesong and I. And Marvin was just sort of observing. And suddenly we heard a giggle. And we looked over into the dark kitchen. And there in a corner of this kitchen, which was dark, was Trungpa Rinpoche sitting on a chair. And he was giggling. And he looked at us and he said, "You're such colorful people." I mean, we were drawing blood, Kaesong and I. So we have Akshobhya residing in the east. He represents extreme intellect, this sword that cuts through ignorance. He sits cross-legged, touching the ground with his right hand, like Shakyamuni did when he encountered Mara. The Buddha was unmoved. He touched the earth with his right hand and called upon the goddess of earth to witness his resolution. Earth trembled and quaked in every direction as though to demonstrate her awe at his great vow. Akshobhya makes this same gesture. He's the embodiment of this pure Vajra intellect. The intellect of Vajra, the Buddha of the East, is extreme. It's very clarifying. Clear as the sky, empty, luminous. It is a magic mirror in which nothing in it has any intrinsic reality or independent existence. This kind of knowing perceives everything with precision and clarity. It doesn't judge or compare. It doesn't feel attachment or aversion. It's like watching a play in this note. It's colorful, intense, and real, and yet nothing has actually ever arisen. It is the understanding of simultaneous emptiness and appearance. And it shines forth as a ray of pure white or blue light from Akshobhya's heart. I think we are going to just have me tonight, because we've still got Ratnasambhava, and Michael will do the other 3 Buddha families next week. So this is relative reality that Vajra family sees, not total reality, which doesn't actually exist. It's just this constant relative or conventional truth arising and passing away of qualities. It's the vivid appearance of illusion's play in which we live. This is Akshobhya, the Buddha of the East. Its characteristic poison is aggression, which manifests as hatred, anger, rage, malice, enmity, and violence. These are the aggression and neuroses of the Vajra family. Mirror-like knowledge shows us that there is really nothing to fight against, nothing from which we need to defend ourselves. It's gone in an instant. The energy of anger can be extremely positive. We shall find in a later chapter that when we meet the wrathful deities, their wrath is sometimes called anger without hatred. It is directed toward evil and ignorance and the suffering they cause. And this is the anger of the Vajra family in the East, entirely free from personal hatred toward living beings. This is the Buddha family of the East, Akshobhya. Yeah, the brilliance of this family illuminates the darkness of ignorance. Its sharpness cuts through confusion. and its shining clarity sees everything without obstruction. This is the Vajra family, the Vajra Buddha. It does not mean worldly cleverness or academic ability. No, it's not about that. It is clarity and steadiness, which come about naturally if we can only allow our minds to relax and become calm and clear like the surface of a mirror. The note, when intellect is misused or allowed to run wild, it becomes destructive, frivolous, a hostile weapon. This is what can happen with your ignorance, your Vajra quality. It has all the faults of frivolous hyper-intelligence. The Vajra family is associated with the element of water, which can be frozen into ice, crystalline, but it must be flowing as well in order to manifest the intelligence of Vajra. The color can be white or blue, depending on the mandala. And when it's one or the other, then the Buddha family in the center of the mandala is the other color. So if Vajra appears white, Buddha is appearing blue and vice versa. But Akshobhya himself, that Buddha, is always blue in color. It represents the transmuted energy of hatred and aggression, transmuted into wisdom. It's connected with the season of winter. Each one of these families is connected with a season. And it's also connected with the dawn. Each one of these families is a time of day. First light is pale and clear with a sense of austerity, the austerity of the Vajra family. The wind blows from the east, bitterly and cold, biting. The landscape is desolate, its features sharply defined, glittering and crystalline, or white and crisp with snow. The symbol of the Vajra family is the Vajra itself. It has 5 prongs. These represent the 5 male and 5 female Buddhas of the 5 families. This is Vajra. So you can see we're being enjoined, asked to enter a very different world. It's not a world of self-fulfillment, self-aggrandizement, self-promotion, self-improvement. All of that's out the window. Instead, we're being asked to enter this magical world that is constantly expressing itself in as the 5 Buddha families. And this is why we're studying them now, to recognize them. Rinpoche loved to tell people what their Buddha families were. Most people have 1 or 2 Buddha families. There's no virtue in having 2 as opposed to 1 or 3 as opposed to 2. It's just the way it is. And then there's the exit. And my exit was karma, action. Roadrunner, he used to call me. For a while, eventually I got over it. But other people were different. I mean, Michael Cohen, who was so Ratna, oh my God, so rich, having to do with wonderful food and wealth, and he just a constant humor, laughing, this rumbling laughter that came out of him. He's dead now. I'm like, oh. So then we'll do the last one for tonight, 627, which is the Buddha family of the South, Ratna. And the Buddha of this family, his name is Ratnasambhava. Moving in a clockwise direction, the next Buddha is Ratnasambhava. Okay, the jewel born, seated in the south. He's born from a jewel. The jewel, Ratna. See, Ratna means jewel, and Sambhava means born from. So the jewel Ratna is in his name, is explained in the Tantras to mean bodhicitta, this jewel, awakened mind and heart, the jewel of the Buddhas. He represents the wisdom of equanimity, sameness, evenness, equality. Can't be upset, can't be moved, just incredibly even. He represents a vision of the universal Rochik. Rochik is Tibetan. It means one taste of the awakened essence of all of existence, so that in enlightenment itself, there is no difference between samsara and nirvana. They have one taste, the taste of this, of the phenomenal world as it arises now in all its brilliance and color. Rochik is a very important term that you will come across again and again. One taste, the taste of reality. Ratnasambhava is the pure essence of the skandha of feeling, Vedana. The polar opposites of attachment and aversion, pleasure and pain, which originate in this skandha, are balanced by equanimity. This means that the polar opposites, pleasure and pain, can be accepted and appreciated as part of our whole experience without producing emotional disturbance. This is the point of Ratnasambhava and the point of the Buddha family. The color of the Ratna family is yellow or gold, symbolizing richness, both material and spiritual. It indicates value, holiness, sovereignty. It is the ripeness of the harvest. And so the season is autumn, the day of time, mid-morning and noon. Trungpa Rinpoche described Ratna, I remember this, I've never seen this anywhere else, as a huge fallen tree that's been lying in the forest, rotting for ages and ages. And there are mushrooms growing on it, and fungi thrive in it. Moss and lichen cover it, and the seedlings have sprouted all over it. Worms and insects feed on this rotten tree that's lying on its side in the forest. Material wealth. Small animals take shelter inside it. It loses sticky gum like amber and its bark peels off, revealing fascinating colors and textures. You could feel it falling apart, like you would sink your fingers into this rotten wood that's full of animals of all kinds and plants. Ratnasambhava himself represents the principle of the quality of all the Buddhas, the spontaneous existence of attributes and powers of enlightenment, by which the Buddhas can awaken others and lead them to that state they embody, enlightenment. The Ratna personality attracts good fortune and is able to appreciate, enjoy it to the full. It has this richness of appreciation. Ratna is the ideal type to be the ruler of a country. And in the ancient world, the most important duty of a king is to provide for all his or her people. Ratnasambhava represents that extraordinary generosity and shows it in his gesture of giving, the right hand held out with the palm facing forward. Ratna generosity springs from the unshakable confidence in the possession of goodness. And in order to possess this, we have to let go of our limited self-concept, our petty, tiny self-concept of me, I. And we have to open up to the limitless power of the Buddha qualities, rediscovering them and radiating out to all beings. So every time we come present, we're coming back into this magical world of the Buddha families. Magical. The real world. The goodness of Ratna cannot be kept to oneself. It's inseparable from generosity. The Buddha Samantabhadra, whose name means universal goodness, belongs to this family. He's famous in the Mahayana Sutras for making inconceivably vast offerings to all the Buddhas to fulfill his equally vast vision of liberating all sentient beings of all time throughout the whole of space. And when we make an offering to the Buddhas, when we make an expression of generosity, it calls forth the immeasurable great response of the blessings of the Buddhas, the Adhisthana, their living presence into the world. So, therefore, in many ritual practices, offerings are made with the intention that they may be limitless and as perfect as those of Samantabhadra. Many tantric practices here that you will be involved with involve offerings. The Ratna poison is pride, arrogance, which arises from being overly impressed with one's own good qualities and disparaging those of others. The distorted Ratna personality would like to expand its own territory into that of others. Pride wants to build great monuments to its own existence. And when you meet a person like this, they fill the space. There's very little room if they're neurotically Ratna. You know, if they're in the same room with them, there's hardly any space for you to breathe. They take it all up. Command attention. Haven't we all known people like this? Maybe we've been this person. And spiritual materialism, acquiring benefit from spirituality, is a Ratna attitude. Through the wisdom of Ratna, we recognize the inherent potential for enlightenment in all beings. Feeling our essential sameness deeply gives us the power of sympathy and empathy. And he says, emotional reactions of liking or disliking begin to lose their importance, so that impartial, all-embracing love can blossom in their place. From a firm, balanced foundation, with unshakable security and confidence, this is Ratna, like a rock. The awakened Ratna personality can act as an inexhaustible mine of spiritual treasure for others, without pride, arrogance, or possessiveness. Those qualities inhere in neurotic Ratna, but in the wise, enlightened Ratna, they are not there. Instead, there's tremendous generosity and giving. So I'll end there, 6:37, and we can have a discussion. Michael, what do you think? Do you want to do anything, or should we put it off till next week?
Yeah, we should wait. There's quite a bit more in the other three Buddhas.
A lot more. Can you see how we're being asked to leave the world of insufficiency, of I and other, of ambition, of hope and fear, and enter into a magical world which is here all the time. A magical world of beauty, meaning. And we don't have to do a darn thing except come back. Come back and rest here. And begin to act in consonance with the appreciation of this world. I see Dan nodding yes. Say something, say what you want.
I was just responding to your question. You know, I can see it. I can't say that I know it, but I definitely it inspires an open mind and a willingness to you know, believe it. How I feel.
And act according to it.
Yeah.
Act according to the beauty and love and meaningfulness. Trump Rinpoche,
Yeah,
all-
yeah. I think that's a good point. I mean, that's with all that and everything else we've been studying and practicing. That intention is always there. You know,
Indeed.
yeah.
Anyone else? Carolyn? Oh, yeah. Come on.
I was waving at Lucy's cat. Luminosity. When you spoke of this in another class, and I got up to do the Nandro the next morning, the luminosity was beyond anything. Magic. I love luminosity.
That's the world we're being asked to enter. We have been inhabiting a dead world, a world of meanness, a world of self-aggrandizement for me, trying to protect me. And it's a mean, empty, gray, unhappy world. And we're being asked just to come present into this. This is the world of the Buddha families, the world of Tantra. This is our path, each one of us. This is why we're here. Anybody? Mark, I'm calling on you. You're muted. And you're in the grass. Is this difficult? There's so little discussion. Judith.
I am having a difficult time reconciling this with the current political
Reconciling what?
reconciling this with the current political situation, my fear of the current situation in which this country finds itself, and especially as applies to me.
That's terrific observation.
It sounds like fairy tales.
Fairy
compared-
tale?
What?
You said it sounds like a fairy tale?
Yeah. Compared to what we're all going through and will be going through.
The world is full of evil. People who are denying this inherent beauty and meaningfulness of life and
That's for
pursuing
sure.
egotism. Trump, Putin, and all of the things that constellate around them. We have to identify what is wholesome real and live that. In defiance of that evil. We have to see it, recognize it, it's always there. It's Mara, the tempter, death.
Indeed.
But we can do it in our lives. What else is there to do of any value?
Just sounds like turning a blind eye to
Not at all.
what's going on.
We could fight it. We can also be of benefit to others through generosity of one kind or another. Don't you think? Michael, what do you say to this? The world is full of evil, yes.
One of the ways in which studying the Buddha families can be helpful is that whenever we see the neurotic expression of one of the families, so like Vajra is associated with anger and judgment and, sort of the intellect turned very highly critical. But there's always the potential in that for the mirror-like wisdom, or mirror knowledge. And it's actually being able to draw that out or reflect that in others and see it in ourselves. That's where it becomes a real practice. Ditto with the pride in Ratna, which can be very self-reinforcing. But underneath that, there is some appreciation, some sense of richness, which again, if the person can let go of clinging to an ego, clinging to a self, that's when its wisdom aspect comes out. That's why in general in the Vajrayana, we're not trying to really eliminate the kleshas, because it's really like rejecting wisdom in essence. It's just that we don't see it as wisdom. But that doesn't mean we go along with them either. But that in each case, that potential is always there. And in particular with Ratna is, as an energy is very, if you ever know someone who's very good at enriching other people, making them feel good, and I don't mean monetarily, I mean just by their personality. That's a real expression of the wisdom of Ratna, perceives richness, potentiality, possibility in things. And it's that way with every one of these families. So it's useful to understand something of both how they can express in a neurotic way, but realize that every neurotic expression, there's also the potentiality, or in essence, a saner possibility.
Steve, Bertie, you make art. You don't give in to the neurotic, evil view of the world. In making beauty, you're celebrating. The
That
Buddha.
is correct. Yes,
Huh?
absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely true.
Right.
Yes.
And it warms the hearts of the people who would see it.
Certainly that is the goal. Yes. That is the hope.
Well, it warms my heart when I see your art, what little I have seen of it. It's really true. And it's the case for all of us. We can all do things that celebrate the beauty of the Buddha families as they express themselves.
Maybe the answer for me is the writing.
Say it again, Judith.
I say maybe the answer for me is the writing.
Exactly. Yeah, your creativity.
Yeah.
Also, you're taking care of Herb. That's an act of generosity and beauty, as difficult as I'm sure it is.
Thank you.
I've often thought we could form a club within this club, a club whose purpose was to do something of benefit for others. Like deliver food to the hungry here in Boulder or something like that. Anything like that is a celebration of the wholesomeness of life. Robert, what are your thoughts?
I'm not sure I have much right now. I'm trying to piece together your thoughtful lecture on what we've already learned, and just trying to integrate it with some of the prior readings and ideas. So I have my notes, and I've been doing some work looking at websites trying to deepen my understanding of the Buddha families. And I actually found a quiz. There's like a 5-question quiz. What Buddha family are you? And you can find out
Really?
what you are.
Where
Yeah,
did
it was a little.
you found this online?
Yeah, I just found this. It was a little fluffy, but I could see if I can find it again in my browser history. Yeah.
Robert,
So
Robert, didn't you already put it up in chat? Because I took the link and I went on and did the quiz.
Oh,
I didn't see anything in the chat. I mean,
I think there was a link to this quiz that I saw at one of our other sessions. I don't know who put it up. Maybe it was you, but I went
Oh.
there and yeah, you take this quiz and you find out which Buddha families you're made of.
I found it. I'll put it in the chat. Used for entertainment purposes only.
Can you see the document in chat about the mandala?
I cannot. I don't think anyone. But
All right. I'll send it out in the email. People have gotten that before, though, right?
Yeah, I could copy paste it, I think, into chat. Does that work?
I don't know. That's what I tried, but if you can do it, do it.
If I can do it.
I think I keep saying it, the important point is that we're being asked to leave the world of ego with its fears and unhappiness. And it's in the world of ego, we're not fully here. We're seeing it through a gray veil of egotism. And we're being asked to enter, to see this world as it is only now, magical, full of richness and beauty and power. We come to the whole thing of Buddhism out of suffering. And that suffering blinds us. Blinds us because we see the world and we see our whole involvement with Buddhism as an attempt to overcome suffering. Instead, what this is asking us to do is to enter this world right now, as it is right now, with appreciation for its magic. I mean, where did this come from? Philip.
So I'm of two minds of presenting this, and it will take a few minutes, but maybe it will be useful. And it's another way of looking at it. If you all want to turn to page 137, and at the bottom of the page, the paragraph that starts, "The great mirror reflects the Dharmadhatu." Within it, the awakened mind perceives the whole of existence, illusory yet real, apparent yet empty. Because the essential nature of all things is emptiness, and go ahead right now and underline that part. The essential nature of all things is emptiness. Because the essential nature of all things is emptiness, equalizing knowledge is inherent in the mirror knowledge. And because all things appear out of that emptiness, and underline that phrase as well, all things appear out of that emptiness, investigative knowledge also arises simultaneously. Period. Emptiness and appearance cannot be separated. That's the third one you want to underline. Emptiness and appearance cannot be separated. Oneness and multiplicity cannot be separated. Sameness and difference cannot be separated. So the fourth one to underline is at the top of the next page, 138. When there is no grasping at a self, one is able to experience, and start underlining here, the basic ground of being, which is none other than universal goodness. Chogyam Trungpa would talk about that a lot, basic goodness. The basic ground of being is none other than universal goodness. That's the fourth thing to underline. And then a couple of lines after that and after that, these two words, love and compassion. Okay, and then go back and look at what you've got. The essential nature of all things is emptiness. All things appear out of that emptiness. Emptiness and appearance cannot be separated. The basic ground of being is none other than universal goodness, love and compassion. That's everything right there. In the Mahamudra tradition, in the Kagyu tradition, in the Mahamudra, these are the four pointing out instructions. These are the pith instructions. This is what it's all about. So between now and tomorrow, you guys want to revisit those four lines and think about them. A lot of you already know a lot of this, and this is what we need to learn and where we're going. The essential nature of all things is emptiness. So what about Trump? What about Putin? All things appear out of that emptiness. Emptiness and appearance cannot be separated. And this is the most important. The basic ground of being is none other than universal goodness, love and compassion. So Barbara was asking a couple of weeks ago, why are we learning about the Buddha families? And I said, because it's going to introduce us to Buddha nature. This is Buddha nature. There are many words for this because there are no words for it. But Buddha nature is as good as any of them. This is what it's all about.
The basic ground of being, which is Buddha, which is none other than universal goodness. Boy, is that... Trungpa Rinpoche spent so much time on that. That the universal ground, that the basic ground of being is none other than universal goodness. I mean, we're coming out of suffering into awakening. That's what this is asking us to do. And it's describing what we're seeing as we awaken in terms of Buddha families, the 5 Buddha families. That's what is seen. That is an elaboration of this basic ground of being, which is none other than universal goodness. That's what the Buddha families represent. The modulations, the different styles of this universal goodness that we could live. Shinyi.
Hi. I have a question. I'm not sure if it's exactly related to what we're talking about right now. So I'm wondering if there's any significance in the fact that Trungpa Rinpoche really wanted his students to practice Vajrayogini as the first kind of Idam practice. And to what I understand, seems like Vajrayogini is very Padma, and she's also the Buddha family. I don't know if there's any significance in her kind of characteristics and the fact that Trungpa Rinpoche really emphasized this practice.
Is there a question in there?
It is a question. Like, is there any?
I can't answer it. Michael?
I think Vajrayogini traditionally, or what's the word? Vajrayogini is very typically given as a first yidam. And, he greatly simplified the practice in some ways for us to do. Then Takrasan Bar is far more complicated, but it has all the essential elements, and I think it was a practice that he felt was conducive to introducing people to direct experience, ordinary mind.
Also, the Shambhala teachings are so consonant with what we're reading here. The Shambhala teachings emphasize basic goodness. And what is it in level 2 they teach, Michael? I'm forgetting. The neurosis manifesting itself. Remember level 2?
Cocoon?
Cocoon. He mentions cocoon in here. It's mentioned in this chapter later on. Cocoon is when you cut yourself off from the real world, this world of basic goodness, and live in the world of ego with its desires, for things and its fears and paranoia. Cocoon, a web that we weave around ourselves. So I find that all of this is very, very illuminated by the Shambhala teachings, which emphasize basic goodness. Really, that's what these Buddhas are all about. Well, it's time to be continued tomorrow for those of you who come to the discussion. And Michael, you'll do the second half of this chapter next week, right? Yep.
Yes, and I'll mute us all, and we can dedicate the merit generated through our practice and study for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Gonna get noisy.
By this merit, may all obtain omniscience, may it defeat the enemy wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great east, may the lotus garden of the Rigdon's wisdom bloom, may the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled, may all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, John.
Hey, John.
John.
Michael. Thanks,
Good night,
everybody.
everyone. Have a great
Thanks so much, John.
Thank
dream.
you, John. That was particularly, yes, thank you.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thanks.